بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على الكريم وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين اللهم لا سهل إلا ما جعلته سهلا وأنت تجعل الحزن إذا شئت سهلا اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد وبعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته everyone. Inshallah, what I want to briefly discuss today is about what is happening really around the world. I'm not talking about the pandemic, although this pandemic is ongoing, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy for us. But the other pandemic really, it's about racism. And I know I discussed a couple of times during the khutbahs at the mosque about racism and how vile, aberrant Islam holds in this regard. The view of Islam is very, very clear about the disgusting nature of racism. And even recently, we know, I mean, this is not something new, to be honest, and this is happening all over the world, in particular America at the moment, where a lot of our black brothers and sisters are being marginalized, not only marginalized, but the institutional racism that exists within America, it's creating havoc and is costing the lives of many, many people. And George Floyd, or Lloyd, I believe, he was recently was found out that he was really essentially murdered by the police. And this is not one isolated incident, but this is an incident that happens quite frequently in America and also in the UK. In fact, racism, the modern day racism really started in the UK with the transatlantic slave trade, and when the ships, thousands of ships were carrying slaves from Africa to UK and then to America. So, and unfortunately, there is racism within our own Muslim community. Yeah, this is not to dismiss, what is happening outside, but there's also racism within our own communities. There's, racism between, Pakistanis and Indians, and Bengalis, Turks, Somalians, and converts finding it very, very difficult, in particular black converts finding it very difficult to get married because people will not marry their daughters or sons because of the skin color. So racism, unfortunately, is rife. And if you look at the evilness of racism, if you look at the first person or first creation that, demonstrated racism was Iblis. Iblis did not, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered Iblis, all the angels, to prostrate to Adam alayhi salam, right? In the Surah Baqarah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that, prostrate to Adam alayhi salam. Iblis did not prostrate. He said, how can I prostrate to him? Meaning Adam alayhi salam. خَلَقْتَنِي مِن نَارٍ وَخَلَقْتَهُ مِن طِينٍ. I am better than him, right? Can you see? I am better than him. I am created from fire. Fire is powerful. Fire signifies strength. وَخَلَقْتَهُ مِن طِينٍ. And you created him from clay and mud and soil, which in his eyes signifies, meekness and weakness. So how can I prostrate to him, right? So he discriminated due to the content of the creation of Adam alayhi salam. And we know what happened after. The very first incident of racism that took place, right, in this universe was between Iblis and Adam alayhi salam. And we know the demise of Iblis, the result, the outcome of the actions of Iblis. He was cast aside, and he has been given respite until the judgment, but he is maligned and he's cast aside, and the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not reach him. And racism, although Islam abolished racism theologically in the text, right? The Prophet ﷺ said that there is no superiority over an Arab over a non-Arab, or a black over a white, and a white over a black person, except by taqwa, good deeds and taqwa. And we know, if in fact, many of some of the prophets were black. Moses alayhi salam, Musa alayhi salam was black. In fact, you look at Isa alayhi salam, he was an Arab, dark skinned, Right? All the prophets like that. So, the companions of the Prophet ﷺ, Bilal radiallahu anhu, most famous one. But there were others, right? There were many others. The first martyr, right, was black. Yeah, was a black woman, in fact. Sumayya radiallahu ta'ala anha, first martyr in Islam. The first male martyr was a black man in the Battle of Uhud. The first man to give, the first leader to give shelter to the Muslim was a black Ethiopian a leader. The person who took care of the Prophet was black, right? So, and the list continues. So Islam theologically has completely abolished and said racism is prohibited categorically. To discriminate against someone because of the color of the skin or what the culture they've come from is a kabira. It's completely prohibited in Islam. But unfortunately, we know that racism within people still exists. Racism within people still exists. And we have to be very, very categorical, brothers and sisters, that any form of racism, racism or racial ignorance, people may display racial ignorance or naivety, but they may not be racist in that sense, but they're uneducated. We have to educate them. But there are many people who are racist, right? And we experience, or certain people experience racism every single day, you individually and collectively. There are what is called institutional racism within UK, and there have been a lot of NHS doctors writing about this. There are journalists writing about. There's been a lot of papers and research documents, empirical research shown that there is racial discrimination within the UK, right? And the very fact that this to relate it back to the pandemic, the very fact that people are talking about, okay, blacks and Asians and are more prone to getting the coronavirus disease, and more prone to death, in fact, is problematic. Again, I can't comment on the medical side, but it really, in fact, the way it's being portrayed, the way it's been articulated is very, very dangerous in my opinion. Then why aren't black people, why in Africa and other parts of the world not dying? Some countries which has large black population, they have less in terms of death than we have in the UK. In fact, in the UK has more death than the whole Europe put together. But I'm not going to comment on the medical aspect of it, but the way it's been articulated is very, very dangerous. And that feeds into the narrative, that feeds into the racist narrative that, some people don't realize that they can be racially ignorant, but they can, unintentionally even sometimes peddle that narrative of racism and Islamophobia. So as Muslims, we have to be emphatically clear that there is no place of racism in Islam. And whoever displays racism, any form of racism, it is prohibited and in Islam, right? So how can we overcome that? What can we do as individuals, as mosques, as collective body, as the ummah? What can we do to support what is happening in the UK and globally? What can we do ourselves to get rid of, suppress racism within our own community? Number one, education. We have to learn about our history. We have to learn that many of the prophets were black. We have to learn that there is such a thing as institutional racism. We have to learn and acknowledge, right, and listen to people who face racism day in, day out. That people cannot get a job because of the skin color or because of their name. We have to educate ourselves first about what Islam says theologically about racism. That racism is prohibited. That racism is haram. That we have to support, right? We have to speak out against people who commit racist actions, right? So education is very, very, right? Learning about what Islam says from the hadith of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi alayhi wasallam. Number two, not only talking about it, not only learning about it, but speaking out against racism, right? Helping the oppressed and the people who are being discriminated against. So it's not, yes, lip service is important sometimes. Showing that you empathize is sometimes, but empathy is not only by words, but empathy also by actions. Yeah, we show empathy towards people by words. Verbally, we show empathy. We can demonstrate empathy, and people can get a lot of peace. But we also have to show empathy by our action. So how can we do that? If we see someone who's being oppressed, discriminated against because of the skin color, because of the culture, because of the background, we have to speak up. The Prophet said, "Man ra'a minkum munkar falyughayyirhu biyadihi." That whoever sees amongst you an evil, let him change it with his hand. If he cannot, let him speak out against it. If he cannot, let him hate it within his heart. وَذَلِكَ أَضْعَفُ الْإِيمَانِ. That is the weakest of the levels of Iman. So we have to do something about it proactively, right? So when we see someone, and inviting people in our mosque, some mosques, unfortunately, when a person of color comes inside the mosque, they will look in a very discomforting manner towards that person, just because of the skin color. Why? Because we're not accustomed to people. We're accustomed to discrimination, unfortunately. So when we see a person like that being discriminated against, we have to speak out. Otherwise, we will be held accountable on the day of judgment by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? The other thing is that theologically, to really point out that those who discriminate are racist. What are they in fact saying? What are they saying? Really, let's think about it for a moment. They're saying that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created our different skin colors. Allah is the one who has given us those colors. Right? And we live in a culture, where, or society where, to be dark means, to be dark, according to some people, or a lot of people, means ugly, to be ugly. Whereas in the past, it wasn't the case. The whole cosmetic culture, the whole beauty culture has, means that, white means beauty. That's why in India and other countries, right, billions of pounds are spent on marketing, right? Billions of pounds of marketing, showing that, people who are whitish, then they're beautiful. People who are dark, they're not beautiful. Right? Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created all of these different creation. White, black, red, peach, whatever. And those who are racist, who are discriminate, who hate a person because of the skin color, because inside we're all the same. Inside we have the similar, DNA. Inside we're the same. Yeah, black people don't have a different DNA than us. Brown people do not have less intelligence. Unfortunately, this helped this mentality, this colonized mentality, help people, help governments, help countries to colonize black people and their countries. So what are we saying as Muslims? If a Muslim discriminates against someone because of the skin color, we're saying that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created someone imperfectly, and that's kufr. Allah is the one who created the skin colors. Allah is the one who has given us these different cultures. So we are saying that we're actually discriminating against Allah's creation, Allah's handiwork. So can we really, as believers, as Muslims, be like that? So we have to be really, really careful. So education, standing up for the oppressed, and thirdly, have activities at mosques, have activities, elsewhere within your family members, where the education, there can be workshops, right? Write up policies. If you are good at writing, write up policies. Write about this issue. Speak about these issues. Because yes, we may not be able to change everything, but as long as we take baby steps, as long as we are able to do something, and inshallah, to the best of our ability, then inshallah we will be. A lot of people talk about, if you have a daughter, will you get her married off to a black person? Some people to that question were saying no, simply because of the skin color. Simply because of the skin color. And that is un-Islamic. Yeah, the Prophet didn't say in the hadith, he didn't say, marry only this color or that color. He talked about the content of the character of that person, the character, about deen, right? A person should be married because of his or her deen, because of his or her character, family background, not the skin color, not how black or how white that person's skin is. To do that, then look at the Prophet. Sauda was a black person. The Prophet, mother in one sense, who looked after him, right, was black. Many of the five of the companions, right, Usama, in Zayd, they were Abu Dhal al-Ghifari. Abu Dhal al-Ghifari was black, from a black tribe. Yes, they were Arabs, but they were black Arabs. So many of these companions, who the Ashara Mubashira, the 10, many were black people. The most celebrated of the black person of the companions, Bilal radiallahu anhu, who was given the honor of quoting the adhan. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not discriminate. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave that honor to Bilal radiallahu anhu. Not because he's black, not because he's white, but because he had good character. But in second thing is that Allah wanted to show that there is no superiority. A white person does not have superiority over a black person by virtue of him being white or her being white. Or Arab does not have superiority over a non-Arab by virtue of him speaking the Arabic language. What makes us what makes us good in the sight of Allah is how much taqwa we have, the good deeds that we leave behind in this world. Right? So these points are really, really important, brothers and sisters. Or education, speaking up against injustice and the oppressed people, having practical solutions where we are able to combat this within ourselves, because sometimes we are unaware of our own biases. By being conscious and aware of our own biases, and also educating other people in that regard. Yeah. So it's really, really important. I can't emphasize enough that we, educate ourselves. We do something proactively about it. Hopefully, once the once the mosque are open, inshallah, then we can, do these activities, inshallah, within individually and also collectively as mosque and organization. One more final point that I wanted to mention. I want to really have a discussion on this. That look into yourself, gauge your own nafs, gauge your own heart. How would you feel? How do you feel about this issue? How would you feel that, have I discriminated against someone because of the skin color? Have I been silent in a situation where someone is being discriminated or oppressed because of the skin color? What could I have done differently to support that person? What am I doing as a Muslim to help the oppressed, especially in our time now, our black brothers and sisters, to help them to fight the injustice that they're facing? What am I doing if I am from an Asian background? What am I doing to support? If I'm from a white background, what am I doing? I may not have faced discrimination, racism. But what am I doing to help the oppressed? What am I doing to tackle the injustices that are taking place within our societies, within our own communities, inshallah? So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless us. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide us. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enable us to do what we can to better our situation, to enable us to continue in the fight against injustice and help the oppressed. And may Allah make us among those who are beacon of light for people, inshallah. So let's open up for some discussion and questions in the last 5-10 minutes,
inshallah. We've got a question coming in from the Q&A. How should we react to people who are racist towards us, even if it's only subtle?
How should we
react to people who are racist towards us, even if it's only subtle?
I think, be calm, but give your opinion that, look, what you have done it comes across as racist. So educate a person, right? Educate a person. Sometimes, as I said, some people say things or do things because of the culture or because of the society that we live in. Sometimes people are ignorant. Yeah, there's no excuse, right? Because they're ignorant, it doesn't mean that we excuse the behavior. No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that, if they are showing racial ignorance, we have to educate them. If they persist in their racism, after you've educated them, right? Then obviously that the matter is has to go to the next level. But sometimes people show ignorance, people show racial ignorance, and they don't know about it. We just have to educate them, inshallah, calmly, collectively, with wisdom, with intelligence.
Okay, I have a question. So with all the, obviously I know with the corona, it's a different environment at this moment, but with the marches that are going on, if we imagine there was no COVID-19 issue around, would you recommend, as a Muslim community, we are more at the front with marching with the Black brothers and sisters to show that support?
I mean, look, everyone has to consider what the situation is, right? Especially the current pandemic, because we don't want, yes, we have to support, and marching is fine, but we have to consider all the different variables that we have now in terms of the pandemic, in terms of the situation that we're facing. So yes, we have to support, but there are so many ways that we can support. So you have to judge your own situation, judge your own kind of commitment and whatnot, your expertise, and do what you think is best, inshallah. But the points I mentioned is a must. Educating us, educating other people, right? And if we see something within our control, if you like, that someone or people are being discriminated against because of the skin color, we have to speak out against that. At the very least,
And then how do we shake, as in, because I know the mosques exist like that, where they are very much Pakistani mosques, Bangladeshi mosques, etc., and it can be quite awkward for other ethnicities to go into masjid. How do we have that conversation with those masjids, or would you recommend that we raise it to, for example, a central body in the Muslim community, so that institution can have that conversation with them? Yeah. What would you recommend?
I think there's two things. Both things actually. So yeah, the MCB, the BBSI, and other national organizations are raising it at different capacities. Yeah, but also at a local level, each mosque, each organization group needs to do their own part. Yeah, and what they can do, as I mentioned, educate themselves, do workshops. Yeah, and education. That's why I intentionally, a number of times in Iman Center, the khutbahs, I address this issue head on, right? Because I know this is a problem within our Muslim community, but I addressed it head on, and we need to continuously do that, right? Through the Jum'ahs, through the workshops, through our own interactions, through other, local groups who are campaigning on this issue, get involved, partner up with those groups, inshallah.
No, inshallah, that's great, because we all know this exists, and it's going to be generations that work through, have that conversation, self-reflect to try and resolve these challenges and take them out of our community. So inshallah, it starts with us, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, any other questions from anyone? I think it's also worth saying, if anyone does ever face any sort of racism through school, work, etc., or they feel that the masjid can do better in some way or forms, please raise that to us, and it's something that we would really love to tackle head on, and support our community in every way or form, and guide them in terms of how we can kind of tackle or help people resolve some of these challenges that they're facing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I can't see any other questions. Let me just double check the YouTube. If that's okay as well, then we could probably finish with the dua. Okay, interesting question actually we have on YouTube. So someone said, as Muslims, we can't get involved in protests because they are mixed with men and women. So should we be involved in such sort of protests?
Look, there's always going to be those issues, the issues about, okay, men and women intermingling and whatnot. But there are always ways of overcoming that, mitigating that. You know, demonstration protests are, you know, they're not the end goal. They're a means to something, and they're not the only means that people use. In a democratic society, they're not the only means that people use, right? So I think it's important that Muslims do get engaged, right? Not just on one thing, but in multiple areas, multiple layers. So I think it's fine as long as those Islamic issues, adab and etiquette is maintained.
Cool. Jazakallah khair. Good answer. We just got a statement on the Q&A. Alhamdulillah, we're lucky to have a very diverse community at Al-Emaan Center. I agree. I think we're very fortunate with the area that we're in, that there is such a plethora of different ethnicities who have come from far and wide. So I think that we're just lucky to be in that place. But Jazakallah khair for that comment. Okay, Sheikh, shall we end with a dua?
Yes, inshallah. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enable us to speak the truth wherever we are. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect our family members and all people around the globe from this pandemic, the coronavirus, as well as any form of harm or abuse that may come towards us. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala open our masajid and open the doors of His mercy as soon as possible. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enable us to go and meet our friends like we used to before, inshallah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enable us to continue in whatever good that we do until our last breath in this dunya, and may Allah allow us to leave this world while our tongues and our lips are enumerating His blessings and the kalima la ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Until next time, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.
Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Inshallah, till next time.